Hi, welcome back to A Grateful Tangle. I'm Manon, and this is a weekly knitting vlog where I talk about things that I'm knitting and working on and some, life updates here and there, things that are bringing me joy. And I appreciate you spending time here with me. If you're new, this is episode 3, so it's a fairly new vlog. I do try to post once a week. Often I will have, I want to say more knitting progress updates than I have right now. Part of the reason for that is that I'm currently working on a test knit. I've mentioned it in the other 2 episodes. I will link to the designer for the pattern that I'm test knitting. It's a sweater. It's a gorgeous sweater. I'll pop a picture of it up and you can see that's what it is. And the designer's name is This.Bird.Knits. I'll link to both her Ravelry and her Instagram. The picture of the picture that I just showed is from the test knit call on her Instagram page. We are allowed to show little sneak peeks here and there, but as I'm almost finished with it, there's not really. It would be like an entire peek. I could just show you like the little corner of the hem, but I don't even have it in my little vicinity. It's on the couch where I do most of my knitting. So that's an update on that. It is one that I am probably going to make short sleeved. I'm making the long sleeve version because I want to make sure I have accurate yarn weights and yardages for what I use to make the size that I'm making, which I'm making size 5. But I feel like with the yarn that I'm using and the way that it's working up and it's draping really nicely, I think it's going to be a really, really great spring piece. And here in California, our springtime weather is hot. So it was, I think, 28 Celsius yesterday. It's supposed to be 28 or 29 today. We're usually in the mid 20s to low 30s Celsius in March, April, May. And then in the summertime, it's in the 40s. So for those of you that don't know Celsius, that is the 80s. And sometimes we can hit the 90s. In the summertime, we often hit 100 Fahrenheit. So, this is just it's a warm climate. It's a warm climate, which actually reminds me of, there is a YouTuber that I've really been enjoying, and I'll link to her, YouTube channel. Her name is Your Knitting Bestie and is absolutely delightful, is in Australia, so also a warm weather knitter. And I just find she's delightful and very informative. I find that I am really drawn towards people that I don't know. She seems very calm and has a lot of information when it comes to different yarns that are, I don't want to say more readily available to me because, obviously California and Australia have different companies that sell yarn. But I find that being a Californian and being in warm weather, it's really difficult for me to knit using wool. I have a couple sweaters that I've made that are wool sweaters, and they get very, very little use because they're just too warm. Even in the wintertime, they're too warm. So I really enjoy hearing what she has to say in regards to knitting for warmer climates, and I highly recommend her. Even if you aren't a warmer climate person, I highly recommend the things that she shares. They're really great. So I'll link to her below. As far as updates go, I have some whips that I've recently started that are smaller projects. And then I also have a languishing whip that I really, really want to finish. So I have gotten it out and I will show it to you. It's a pattern that I feel like I'll probably knit more than once because I've really liked it. The reason that it's languishing is the yarn choice that I made. And I'll talk about that when I get to it. And then I have another whip that is a pair of slippers that I have knit before and really, really liked. And I've been tweaking the pattern so that what the pattern calls for and what I'm using a yarn that's a little bit thicker than what the pattern calls for, and I'll show that as well. First things first, I'm not wearing anything hand knit. Part of the reason for that is that it's hot. No, but most of the reason for that is that I would typically be wearing, I know I've talked before about my absolute love for hair wraps of all kinds. I am such a, as you can see here, this is a vintage silk scarf. The brand is called Honey. And it's a 100% silk scarf. So I do have to put a bobby pin in the side so that it doesn't slip right off my head. But I got it at a vintage shop on our last vacation. We stayed in a cabin in a little town here called North Fork, California. And stayed in a cabin for a week and went to all of the little vintage and antique and thrift shops that tend to be in the churches up that way. And I got it for $0.25. This was 25 cents. And it has quickly become a staple. Normally, I would be wearing a knitted head wrap, but as I mentioned in a previous episode, my husband works at Anzula Fiber yarn company, and the owner and his coworker are at H&H, I think it's called, which is a convention in Chicago. If I'm getting any of this wrong, I'm going to put words up in the air that correct all of my misinformation. I will put links to the yarn company in the description below so that if anybody is interested in some absolutely gorgeous yarn that is dyed by people that I know and care about, I will put that link below and you can order online. But anyway, they are the owner and his coworker are at that convention, and his coworker said, "Do you think I could borrow a couple of your knitted headscarves?" And so I sent all of my hand knitted headscarves with her, and so I don't have any to put on my head. But that being said, I am working on, this is a self-drafted pattern for a headscarf that the coworker has a couple of these that I've made, and I've put really, really cool buttons on to hold them together. I'll put a picture up of me wearing one or two of them. I have one that's in green that I made with, I think it was a Malabrigo Rios, and then one I have in red, which I'm making another one of. I'll show it to you in a sec, that was made with some stash yarn. I crocheted my dad he wanted a Santa hat that would fit over his bicycle helmet. I'll put a picture up here. I am chuckling because it's probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever made in my life, but it turned out great and he loves it, wears it often. And I had made it with, it's a Lion brand, I believe. Yeah. The Heartland Thick and Quick. So I had extra of that. So I'm using that for, oh, lordy. Okay, there we go. I'm using that to make a few of these headbands that I'm hoping to kind of get the pattern written up. So I've been testing it in different yarn weights so that one pattern will be useful for chunky, and this is a worsted weight. I don't remember what colorway this is. This is a Gritty Knits Merinosaurus, 100% merino. And it's just really fun. I mean, it looks like confetti to me. It is a 4-row repeat, and I've designed this to be the type of headband that I really, really like, where there's a longer curved edge that kind of just fits really, really well, and then a shorter one. Hopefully you can see a little bit in the photos that I posted on the screen, how that works. And then I do it with a little button closure, and I wear them upside down so that the thicker part is down here, and right side up so that the thicker part is here, and I just can't get enough of them. This is the one that I'm doing in the red. I've already made one out of this red yarn, and those are really cute stitch markers. I do on their increases at the center as well as increases on the end that I do to kind of give it this crescent shape that I really, really like. So anyway, that's those two, and those I usually will throw one of them in my bag so that if I'm waiting in line at Costco, I can pull out my knitting. And it's amazing how having something that you love to do that's also portable makes all of the little things that could get really, really, I want to say obnoxious, but that's probably too strong of a word. But if there's a long train that you're waiting at, you can just get a few stitches done, and then all of a sudden you're not just this train. So I've been knitting on those just on the go, especially since the test knit that I'm working on now that it's almost finished. It's I would need a larger bag, and I don't have changing my purse energy pretty much ever. So that's those two. I have my languishing whip here in my hand. It is the Staple Linen Top by Joji Locatelli, and it is one of I'll put a photo up here. It is one of the patterns that caught my eye before I knew how to knit, and I attribute how gorgeous. I mean, it's just simple, and I just love it. It's just stunning. It's a beautiful pattern. It's a beautiful top. And that is one of the few patterns that I credit learning how to knit to, because how else am I going to do it? I want that top. I got to learn how to make it. So I pulled out, I make these knitting planner, here's one that's not written on because I haven't made any notes for it yet. I make these knitting project notes. I do not have a great memory. And I also really struggle with reading patterns like on my phone or on my Kindle. I like to have my paper pattern. I go through and I highlight all of the bits, all of the instructions for the size that I'm going to be making. I find that if I don't do that, I get really, really overwhelmed with the jumbliness of all of those numbers in one spot, and it makes it really easy for me to make a mistake. So I tend to be really methodical when it comes to going through and reading a pattern before I start it. I read through it a few times, partially because being a newer knitter, there are quite a few techniques that I don't know yet. So I like to make a little list of things that I should look up on YouTube before I start, just so that I kind of get an idea of, well, maybe I should hold off on this pattern until I feel like I've got a few more skills in my skill book. And the project notes really helps me, because once I'm finished with a pattern, which this one obviously it's not completely filled out yet, but I haven't completed the pattern. I'll put information in there that I take the notes that I've probably written in the margins of the pattern. I often need to use a different needle size than what patterns call for. I find that I'm a really tight knitter. So if I don't write that down, that I used a 4.5 millimeter for the ribbing instead of a 5 millimeter, or I guess it would be the opposite way. When I get to ribbing in the rest of the pattern, I'm like, oh crap, what did I use? So I tend to take really extensive notes, and it just, which I also enjoy taking notes. So that's not tedious for me. I know that for some people that would be a really, really tedious, a really tedious task. So this is my staple linen top. It's almost finished. I think I've got 5 more inches to do on the body. And then I'll be done. It's got this gorgeous, I think this is called Twisted Rib. I'll correct myself on the screen if it's not called Twisted Rib. It's got this gorgeous twisted rib that goes down the mid back and the front center, and I just think it's really, really beautiful. I did pick up the stitches at the neck to do the neckline that it calls for, which I believe is a ribbing, and I didn't like it. I really, really liked the unfinished look, so I went around and I crocheted. I just did simple, I think it was just a single crochets. I did single crochets around the neckline to just give it a little bit of a finish, but keep it still kind of unfinished. The yarn that I'm using is a really rustic yarn. And like I mentioned earlier, that is the reason that this whip is languishing, but it won't be for long. I am going to finish it this month, and you'll get to see me wear it, just like I know you're hoping. But this yarn is a 100% cotton yarn, and it's hand spun. It is by a company called Handspun Hope. It's made in Rwanda. It's Ethiopian cotton. The color I'm using is Voca Gray. And my issue with it's thick and thin, the way that I would kind of expect a hand spun to be. But my issue with it is that I think that it's overspun. And so the yarn, like if you hold a piece of it and you put pieces together, it like, it twirlies on itself. And it's made it difficult, to knit with. So I sort of, if you can see the ball of yarn that I'm using, I've been pulling out short pieces from the main skeins, and really the first skein that I used was not, I didn't really run into that issue, or I probably wouldn't have continued, because it made it really difficult for me. It made it really difficult. And so for this one, what I've been doing is I've been unraveling it and like rewinding it, like hand winding it into smaller balls of yarn, so that I could let some of that tension out of the yarn. I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do. I don't know, but I really love this top, and I really want to make it. So that's my story about the staple linen top. The pattern has been really, really easy to understand. I made a few changes in the way that I was doing increases, just because I found that I really, really like lifted increases. And so I did that in a few spots, like where you're increasing for the underarms. And I think that it's been looking really, really good. And I don't think that if I ever wear this when I someday meet Hohi Locatelli, I think she'd be okay with me changing those things. just for my own preferences. So anywho, I will put links to that down below, and I will get this out of my way. Let's actually put it right back here. Okay, another whip that I have had around for a little while, but just haven't got to working on, are these farm slippers. The pattern is by Andrea Mowry. I've made these once before. I made them in a blue color, and I used a 100% wool yarn, which was stupid, but they turned out really cute, and they're really, really cozy. So I wanted to make them again. The pattern, I believe, is written for, hold on, I've got the pattern right here. The pattern, I believe, is written for a worsted weight yarn. And I believe that in the picture that I'm showing here, it's actually a marled, 2 strands of, I'll put the words on the screen because I don't remember. Like I say, my memory is just no. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to use a yarn that had some nylon in it. And I chose this Barocco Vintage Chunky, yeah, which is an acrylic wool nylon blend. And it's lovely. I really, really love it. I've worn this one slipper around the house a couple times, and just to make sure that the fit is good for my foot, because I did need to change a few things just so that I made the right size. I altered the pattern just a little bit with a few stitches here and there so that it would turn out to be just like the worsted weight, but with a chunky weight yarn, and I love it. So I need to make the second one of that. I've got my yarn all caked up, and I've really, really liked using this Barocco Vintage. It's great. And which reminds me, I do have some more Barocco Vintage, but I believe it's a DK. And I haven't used that for anything yet. But now that I know that I really like this, I'll have to think about what to use that for. So anyway, that is that project. And then I think the last thing I have to show you, yes, the last thing I have to show you, last week I talked about patterns that I wanted to make in the meantime, not in the meantime, wanted to make after the test knit is finished that I'm doing for This.Bird.Knits, and I decided that I was going to make yet another pair of slippers. I'm going with the Nordic slippers. I'll put the picture up here. I'll put links to the pattern down below. And I already had this pattern. It caught my eye a while back, and I had some yarn left over from, I made the Evermore Sweater by Kadri. I finished that a couple months ago. And the yarn, it was an Aran weight. I'll put a picture of my project of the Evermore Sweater up on the picture so you can see the yarn. It's a really, really gorgeous, chocolate brown. Like it's stunning. I think it's a really beautiful brown yarn, and it's Cascades 220 Aran weight, which is superwash merino. And the sweater came out great. I really, really love it. My knitting notes, I tend to, I put all of my sleeve increases and decrease notes on the back of there so that I can make sure that both of my sleeves are the same, because even though I do put stitch markers in where all of my decreases are, I sometimes don't trust myself. And it's always good to have a backup, especially when you want both sleeves to match. And I tend to want both sleeves to match. So I haven't gotten very far in that with that Nordic slipper, but I have done the beginning. And does anybody else ever just get, it's almost like hypnotized by stitch patterns. I mean, it's just garter stitch, and I don't know, it's just gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. So anyway, that's working up really well, and I'm really, really loving the squish of it. I think it's going to make a really comfy pair of slippers. So hopefully I will get some done on this. This is kind of one of those like back burner. I can knit on it if we're watching something that I don't need to really pay close attention to, because right now it's just garter stitch, and I think it's garter stitch for like 45 rows. It's a while. So I can just pull that out here and there. Whereas the headbands that I'm working on, I like to try and pay a little bit of attention so I don't forget my decreases at the end of every row. And then have to rip back when it like has a wonky edge. So that's it. That's it for the knitting. I am going to throw in some video. So here in the city that I live in, we have what's called Art Hop. And Art Hop is, it's been going on for a while. I don't know how many years, but it's been going on for a while. And it is it's an event that we have monthly. It's the first Thursday of every month. And art galleries and maker spaces and even shops, places will open up on the first Thursday of the month. I think it's from 5 to 8 p.m. And they show art. Oftentimes they'll have, you know, a little beverage station or maybe some snacks. And it's a lot of fun to be able to do that. And I just love it. And there's a makerspace here in Fresno, called Fresno Ideaworks. And my dad is a member there. It's a makerspace that people can be members of, and you can go in and use the spaces. They have a textile room. They have a pottery room. They've got a massive woodworking area. They've got welding equipment, 3D printing, laser cutting. I am missing stuff. There's a place where you can work on your bicycle. There is, I mean, just anything. There's a computer lab where I'm fairly certain that they do, that they have computers that you can use that have like CAM, computer aided manufacturing, and computer CAD. I cannot remember what CADD stands for. Anyway, it's a wonderful place, and my dad really enjoys it. He's taught throwing pottery there before. I've mentioned my dad in a past episode. That yarn bowl was made by him. There's various things around this house that were made by him. That teapot that you see right over my shoulder here was not made by my dad, but it was made by a potter who very kindly gave that to me as a thank you gift. Anywho, so that last night I went to the very, very beginning of Art Hop so that it was all empty, at Ideaworks, and I took a video of the makerspace just to kind of show. Often people that I know from the internet, they just always think it's so fascinating that there's this makerspace that exists in my city, and that it's just really, really cool. So I took a video of it, and I will play that for you, and maybe even put some music to it. So I'll speed up the footage of it, because I want to say it was like a 2-minute long video of me walking through this entire building that actually used to be way back. I want to say at like the turn of, like, I don't know, the early 1900s. It was an indoor swimming pool here in town. It was this big, huge warehouse in downtown, and it had a massive public swimming pool. So the pool is no longer there. But I'll put that up, and I'll put a link to Fresno Ideaworks just so that if anybody's interested in looking at their website, you're more than welcome to. And yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And then the last thing I am going to mention is oh, no, two things. One, if you are interested in my Discord read along, this month we're reading a book called Witches Get Stuff Done. If you're interested in reading that, the book, hold on, I have it up here on my other monitor, is by Molly Harper. I'll put a picture of the book up here. It seems like it's a pretty easy, light read. We are only into like chapter 3 right now, not even chapter 3. So we read at our own pace, and we don't, we can discuss things in my Discord. If you're interested in being a part of that and reading it along with us, let me know, and I can get in touch with you and send you information on it. I have a little, I think what I'll do is I'll put the infographic here for our like reading schedule. I made a little info that has the dates of the month and how far to read, just so that if we do discuss things in a text channel, we don't make spoilers for others. We only discuss it up to what we are supposed to be reading, even if you do read farther ahead. I tend to be one of those people that like I'll binge read. I'll read like, 2 or 3 hours in one day, and then I won't read again for another few days because I'm busy, or I just feel like doing something a little bit more active, or what have you. So that is the book that we're reading right now. I don't know what our June book is going to be yet, but we'll have to see. I don't know. We haven't. We all can submit. We all can submit books to vote from. So I haven't taken a look at that in a minute. So there's that. And then the other thing that I was going to mention is a YouTube that we have really been enjoying, and I, for the life of me, cannot think of the name of it. So I will have to put the name of it up on the screen, and I will put a link below. It is there's 3 YouTube posts on it so far. And it is a bookbinder who is rebinding and making his own leather cover. I don't even know the words for it because I don't know a lot about bookbinding, for the book DUNE, which is one of the bookbinder's favorite books, and coincidentally is one of my husband's favorites. And it's just really cool, like, to watch the process from start to finish. There's 3 episodes so far. There will be a 4th one. He's got 1 more episode to go to do some of the finishing touches of it. But it's just been really, really fun to watch. So I will link to, I'll link to the first episode of that series. And I'll also just I guess maybe I don't need to link to just his random YouTube channel, because you can find that. You can easily find that by the first episode. So I'll link to that. It's brought me a lot of joy. I would love to know if there are YouTubes that you've been watching, especially ones about people that make stuff. Like, I just get so into people that know their craft. I just think it's a lot of fun to watch, and it's really interesting to learn about these methods to things like the bookbinding that you wouldn't necessarily even think about. It reminds me of getting to see in the last episode of the bookbinding that we watched yesterday, even just tools that are made for a specific thing. It's just used by bookbinders for one specific thing, but it makes it easier. I just think that's really cool. So if you have any suggestions about YouTubes I should check out, I would really, really love to hear them, because I am always in the mood to watch somebody who is creating and I don't know, maybe even teaches me something as we go along. So that's it. I hope that everybody is having a great week. I hope the beginning of your month of May has started out on the right foot, and I hope that you have time to do a little bit of making, and maybe even get in something else that brings you joy, whether it be having a nice cup of tea, or reading a good book, or even just spending time outside in a garden or in a rocking chair. I just hope that this video finds you well, and I really, really appreciate the time that you took to watch. Thanks. Bye.